Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Freshman Congressional Class Luncheon, a stronger Latino presence in the 113th Congress.
CHCI offers 2 fellowship programs designed to strengthen professional and leadership skills.
Our Public Policy Fellowship is a paid 9-month fellowship for those that have recently graduated and offers hands-on experience in areas such as international affairs, economic development, and other policy areas of your choosing.
The CHCI Graduate Fellowship Program is for exceptional Latinos who have earned at least a master's degree. It's also a 9-month paid placement and offers unparalleled exposure and hands-on experience in education, health, housing, law, and the STEM fields.
Challenging team-building exercises and weekly leadership training sessions enhance both programs. Fellows are also providing an opportunity to give back to the community by participating in a group volunteer project.
Why do you feel it's important for corporate sponsors such as PepsiCo?
I don't think it's enough to look at social inequities or political inequities in these very siloed workspaces. So I think those public-private partnerships are vital to us moving forward.
It really is an incubator for leadership, empowering them to go back into their communities and share what you've gained here and contribute.
For more information, visit chci.org.
To begin our luncheon program, please welcome the Honorable Jessie Ulibarri, Colorado State Senator and CHCI alumnus representing the 2006-2007 class of CHCI Fellows.
Hello and welcome. Good afternoon. As was stated, my name is Jessie Ulibarri. I'm a proud alumnus of the CHCI Public Policy class, and I'm also proud to serve in the Colorado State Senate representing Senate District 21. It's my honor today to be here with all of you to welcome our 2013 freshman Latino class of members of the 113th Congress. As a recent elected official, it's an honor to stand on this stage with these folks who served as an inspiration to all of us. So, I want to talk a little bit about my CHCI experience and how it fundamentally changed my life. You know that saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure? Well, I have something to share with you all. I am trailer treasure. I spent my earliest years of life in a mobile home park just north of Denver, where my dad was a construction worker and my mom was a waitress, and they cleaned offices at night to make sure my brother and I had a fair shot at the American dream. And it was due to their hard work and their tenacity that I became the first person in my family to go on to higher ed and receive a bachelor's degree. And when I graduated, I enrolled in the CHCI Public Policy Fellowship. So I flew to Washington, D.C., inspired to change the world. And on my first day in the fellowship, I was a little nervous. I was wearing my thrift store suit, my finest at the time. And I sat in a room with some very impressive young people, folks who had just recently graduated from Stanford and Harvard and Yale, and I had graduated from a state school. And I sat in that room and I said, geez, is this where I belong? But over the weeks and months to come, I realized it was exactly where I belonged. As a Chicano from Colorado, as someone who grew up in a mobile home park, my voice was just as essential as theirs in the policy conversations. And what I learned very quickly on here in the halls of power in Congress is that all of our voices as Latino community members are essential to ensuring that our democracy works for every single person. Whether you're a Boricua from Cleveland or a Dominicana from New York or like me, a Chicano from Colorado, our voices are essential to building the American dream. And so when I left CHCI, I went back home and started working in public policy. And last year, I had an opportunity to run for office, and I was elected to serve in the Colorado State Senate representing Senate District 21. Thank you. The district includes the mobile home park where I spent my earliest years of life, the homes where my grandparents raised my parents, and the home where I'm raising my 2 kids. And I've dedicated my life and my career to actually building up our community. And it was because of the fundamental investment I received here at CHCI as a public policy fellow. The first maxed out campaign check I ever received was from a CHCI fellow in my year. Right? We support one another, and CHCI follows through on their commitment to build and develop the next generation of Latino leaders. In this lunch session, we'll be talking with 7 members of the freshman class of Latino representatives to hear their insights and their experiences so far in their new roles. I look forward to learning a great deal, and I'm sure you do as well. So help us spread the word. You can like us, you can retweet, and follow the conversation online. But before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, because the work of CHCI would not be completed without the help of our friends. So let's please give a round of applause to Nielsen, Entravision, and JPMorgan, our generous sponsors of today's luncheon. And now it's my pleasure to introduce another friend of CHCI, representing the 2013 Public Policy Host Sponsor. Please help me welcome Sue Socrates, Vice President of PepsiCo Foundation.
Buenas tardes. Thank you, Senator Ulibarri. I'm Sue Socrates, Vice President of PepsiCo's Global Citizenship. Whoops, I have to adjust my mic for a shorter person. Sorry about that. I'm Sue Socrates, Vice President of PepsiCo's Global Citizenship and Sustainability Organization and Vice President of the PepsiCo Foundation. And I am truly honored to be able to join you in the support of the CHCI Annual Public Policy Conference here in its 36th year. It's absolutely hard to believe, such a wonderful achievement. Thank you to the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, Chairman Ruben Hinojosa, the CHCI Board of Directors, and to your President and CEO and my dear friend, Esther Aguilera, for hosting yet another successful gathering of Latino community leaders and policymakers. And what an impressive group. I'm so looking forward to hearing from our panel after lunch when they join us up here. The distinguished careers of these freshman members of Congress is truly a promising indicator of the extremely talented leadership rising up from across our nation. And I know that you join me in thanking them for their extraordinary public service. At PepsiCo, we're proud of our relationship with CHCI that has grown so strong over more than 3 decades, and we look forward to more collaborative efforts for many, many more years to come. Through our contributions to CHCI's Summer Congressional Internship Program, PepsiCo has impacted the lives of many Latinos, and we're engaging Hispanics in the health arena by supporting the CHCI Graduate Health Policy Fellowship. I'm thrilled to see Daphne Delgado here, PepsiCo Foundation 2013 CHCI Graduate Health Policy Fellow. It is through her aspirations and hard work that all of our efforts advance. PepsiCo has a deep, long-held commitment to building brighter futures in the communities we operate in around the world. And as a global, multicultural organization, this commitment is really rooted in who we are and the values that we hold dear. Our commitment to Latino education and leadership development is part of our global vision of performance with purpose. And it is my distinct pleasure to represent PepsiCo in welcoming all of you today and to play my humble part in helping us together to realize this important vision. If you'll indulge me, I'll draw your attention to the screen to tell you a little bit more about PepsiCo.
Across the vast heartland of America, the vibrant cities of the Middle East, the fertile countryside of Asia, to Mexico, India, Russia, Brazil. One company shapes the way we eat, drink, work, farm, inspire, innovate, live. PepsiCo. A world premier food and beverage company. A century of celebrating and refreshing the world. Brands that have become global icons. Practices that sustain the business and the environment. Innovation that is changing the game.
To many more years.
This is PepsiCo today. A global leader. A step ahead. motivated by performance with purpose. The beacon guiding our business.
This is at the core of everything we do. It fuels our growth and drives our success and shapes our future.
A portfolio delivering sustainable top-line growth. A pace setter in R&D. Providing a wide range of foods and beverages, from treats to healthy eats. This is PepsiCo today, a steward of the environment, minimizing our impact and driving productivity. In 1 year, 2 prestigious awards for water conservation, a trailblazer in sustainable agriculture and energy reduction, the largest commercial fleet of electric trucks in the U.S., a company that dares to dream.
We as a corporation need to help solve the challenges that we're facing.
This is PepsiCo, a more than $65 billion food and beverage company, $22 billion brands, touching consumers more than 1 billion times a day. And this is PepsiCo, consistently honored as best place to work.
It makes you feel like a sense of pride because I made it, we made it.
More than a company, a community of families with passion and compassion for communities of families we serve. We are PepsiCo.
I'm very proud that each day our associates across PepsiCo are working both inside and outside the company to make the world a better place.
From making history to making everyday moments count. Captivating. Motivating. Dazzling. Inspiring. We're PepsiCo.
On behalf of PepsiCo, we hope that in the days ahead you will recommit with us in our support for CHCI to developing the next generation of Latino leaders to ensure a strong America for all of us. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you again, Sue. Now it's my great honor to introduce another friend to CHCI, one of our sponsors this afternoon. Please help me in welcoming Monica Gill, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs and Government Relations for Nielsen.
Hola, hola, buenas tardes. How's everyone doing? Thank you, CHCI. Nielsen is thrilled to be here today at our nation's capital. And I know the last thing you want to hear right now is a corporate spiel, but stay with me here. Many of you may know Nielsen as the TV ratings company, but what you may not know about us actually is that we are also the company that can tell you that on average, a person spends 3 hours, 15 minutes, and 9 seconds on Google every month. That Miley Cyrus's song, Wrecking Ball, was the most digitally downloaded song last week. That Republicans and Democrats, their preferred choice of beer is Bud Light. And that El Chavo del Ocho, well, what can I say? It is the highest rated Spanish cable program of all time. Que viva El Chavo! So why does this matter, and why am I telling you this today? Because while we sit on the verge of an economic solution for this country, Latinos were at the core of that dialogue. You see, Latinos, we are increasingly becoming the most coveted demographic in the nation. Every advertiser, every retailer, network, political candidate in the country is trying to figure us out. They want to figure us out for a couple of reasons. Because they know that Latinos, we are the group with the highest potential to grow their business. They know that Latinos, that we spend $6,268 on groceries every year, that we watch about 4 hours and 17 minutes of television per day, we send or receive 941 texts per month, our households make up 50% of manteca sales in the United States. Yes, manteca. And that Latinas, well, what can I say? that we are more likely to purchase Vicks Vaporub than the typical American woman. So I'm sure you can all relate to that. Yes, we are contributors to the American economy, and Latino purchasing power alone equates to the 13th largest economy in the world. There's no better time to be Latino than now. Let me repeat that. There is no better time to be Latino than now. We are vital to the prosperity, and companies know, they know that Latinos will buoy the economy during difficult times, and this time is no different. Mark my words, Latinos, we're going to save America. And as the conference theme suggests, it is our time. Every industry in the country is vying for your attention, whether you dance salsa or eat it, whether you watch Jorge Ramos or Anderson Cooper, whether you eat a burrito or rode in on one. They all want to know. And I hope you keep in mind these statistics that I just mentioned, because by 11:59 p.m. tonight, there will be 131 Latinos born in the United States. Know that our numbers do matter more than ever. And especially if you're a Latina woman, know that your stock is even more glaring. Because though 86% of the men in this room think that they're in charge, mangos. It's actually Latinas who make up 86% of purchasing decisions in the household. Just saying. So please take a look at the report on your tables, and especially if a man, you can get some tips. So I encourage you to read it. And I would like to thank CHCI for allowing Nielsen to be here, for reminding us that the face of America is changing. That face is beautiful. It is determined, and it is undoubtedly Latino. Gracias.
Thank you again, Monica Nielsen. It's my honor to introduce another friend to CHCI, someone you all may know, a person that we know due to his service in California, but also nationally as the chair for the National Association of Latino Elected Officials. The son of Mexican immigrants, his father worked as a short-order cook and his mother cleaned houses. It sounds very familiar to me in my life story. Alex attended local public schools and then went on to graduate from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology with a degree in mechanical engineering. And after working for U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein and Assembly Member Tony Cárdenas, Alex boldly ran for a seat on the Los Angeles City Council when he was 25 years old. He was not only the first Latino, but the youngest person ever elected to be the president of the Los Angeles City Council. Please help me in welcoming California State Senator Alex Padilla.
Thank you, Senator Ulibarri, for that introduction. And that election to City Council was 14 years ago, so we've done a lot of work since then. But I wanted to take a moment to point out to all of you in this room Senator Ulibarri and his leadership. You're seeing him on stage here today. I had the opportunity to meet him for the first time last November when he participated in one of NALEO's programs. He's been involved with CHCI, but as a member of NALEO, the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials, he went through the boot camp that we have every 2 years for new elected officials. And he's an outstanding example, given his leadership in Colorado and his involvement still on a national scale of the work of NALEO, the work of CHCI, and what it means to support and mentor all the young leadership and all the young talent that we have throughout the country. As we know now more than ever, our country needs us. It needs our talent, it needs our perspective, it needs our experience, much like we need the freshman members of Congress that we are honoring here this afternoon. Now, as president of NALEO, which is a nonpartisan and a bipartisan organization that partners tremendously with CHCI, we do a number of things, from training elected officials to grassroots organizing, and we're very selective in terms of the issues that we will advocate for here at the federal level. I firmly believe, as I believe most of you do here, that we need to achieve comprehensive immigration reform in Congress sooner rather than later. And we also believe that affordable, accessible, quality health care should be made available to everybody, including our community, and that it's not right to discriminate against somebody with pre-existing conditions. These are just two issues and examples of issues that NALEO works on together with CHCI. So we know that immigration and healthcare are an ongoing battle. And it's just so sad that here we are gathered in our nation's capital this week when one of those issues is being delayed as a result of the shutdown, and one of the issues is being fought against that has caused this shutdown. We can't afford to let issues so important to our community be victims of partisan politics. Our voice is more necessary now more than ever. And to help us set the stage for this year's conversations, we know that last November, the world learned what we've known all along. Demographics are changing in America. The growth of the Latino community throughout the nation is not just a temporary fad, it's an enduring trend. And as a lot of people learned last fall in the presidential election, the road to the White House runs right through the Latino community. So with that comes a responsibility to advocate on issues that are important to us, but also to continue to demonstrate our voice in a number of ways, and it begins at the ballot box. Many people celebrated the more than 11 million Latino voters who went to the polls last fall. Significant voice, significant impact in the elections. The bad news is there's an additional 10 million eligible Latino voters that didn't turn out to the polls. Many of them registered and didn't turn out. Many of them eligible to register, but still have not. We have a lot more work to do. And that work just got tougher when the Supreme Court tossed out Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act earlier this year. CHCI, NALEO, each and every one of us needs to collectively recommit ourselves to making sure voter registration is as accessible and convenient to as many eligible people as possible, and that the ballot is as accessible and convenient to as many people as possible. Because when we vote, we make a difference. We vote to change the issues that are being debated. We vote and change the outcome of those policy debates. And when we vote, we change the face of the people having those policy deliberations in local communities, in state capitals around the country, and even here in Washington, D.C., when we elect the highest number of Hispanics to the United States Congress in history, including the many all-stars we're celebrating here at today's luncheon. You know, I've had the pleasure of not just knowing, but working with many of them, including my good friend from San Diego, California, the Honorable Juan Vargas, my former seatmate in the California State Senate, the Honorable Gloria Negrete McLeod, you'll hear from her, and of course my dear personal friend, the one who dragged me into a life of politics and government, the Honorable Tony Cárdenas from the San Fernando Valley. So I hope you give them the proper respect and honor when they take the stage. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the Democratic Whip of the U.S. House of Representatives. Hey, that worked. Please welcome the second-ranking member of the House Democratic leadership who's in charge of mobilizing the party vote, and we know we need it very, very often. He's in charge of coordinating strategy with the members of the caucus and the other members of the Democratic leadership. As an individual, he's developed a reputation of being a very strong leader, more than a capable legislator, but a consensus builder, as demonstrated in his championing of bipartisan support for the SCHIP program, the state's children's health insurance program that's bringing 4 million additional low-income children into coverage for health benefits in the country. He's also been a leader in creating jobs. His focus on manufacturing and his Make It in America plan has been responsible for a job creation, not just in his home state of Maryland, but throughout the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Congressman from the 5th District in Maryland, the Honorable Steny Hoyer.
Good afternoon, CHCI and CHCI supporters. I am so very pleased to be here. You're going to see 7, I hope 8, one's not here yet, but 8 of the most extraordinary members of the Congress in just a few minutes. First of all, I want to thank Senator Padilla for that introduction and for his comments, and congratulate him on his leadership of NALEO, a wonderful organization that is expanding almost as we speak, which is a testimony to the work that CHCI has done through the years. I see my good friend Joe Serrano down here in front, with whom I've served for many, many years, one of my closest friends in the Congress of the United States. Ruben Hinojosa, you're president of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Ruben, thank you. I particularly thank Ruben because he's always accompanied by his extraordinarily beautiful wife, and I love to be with her. He's not bad either. Esther Aguilera, let me congratulate you on your leadership of the CHCI. You have done an extraordinary job. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have a short period of time, and I want to start by thanking Alex, as I said, for his introduction and for his work. And I want to thank Esther once again for the opportunity to speak with you, all of you today, and for her outstanding leadership of the CHCI. CHCI Chairman Ruben Hinojosa, who I've mentioned, has been an extraordinary leader in the Congress and a close friend of mine. On behalf of Americans' Latino community and a fighter for equal justice and equal opportunity. And I want to recognize you, Ruben. I don't know of another member who is as focused on his constituents and those who need help than Ruben Hinojosa in the Congress of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, for nearly 4 decades, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus has been the leading voice on Capitol Hill for the Congress concerns, interest, and well-being of our nation's Latino community. And they have made an extraordinary difference in the progress and influence and involvement of that community, from promoting economic opportunity to supporting public education, from fighting for equal rights to standing up for the comprehensive immigration reform. Let me stop there. This is a moral issue for the United States of America. We lift our lamp beside the golden door. Let us not take it down. Let us understand that those who came to the United States of America were some of the most courageous, enterprising, risk-taking, productive people in the world who came to America and built the greatest country on the face of the earth. Tomorrow, we're going to introduce a comprehensive immigration bill which takes the best of the Senate, and the best of the Senate amendments, and the best of the House in terms of enforcement. Is it a perfect bill? It is not. But it is a bipartisan bill that we ought to be able to pass, and we ought to be able to pass in the near future with our Republican friends and help. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus has been at the forefront. They are our leaders. The principles that they have enunciated are the principles, Ruben, as you well know, that we are following. It's been a privilege to work alongside so many outstanding CHC members since I first came to the Congress, and to be there in the trenches alongside them in the fights to pass critical legislation like the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Help of America Vote Act, and, ladies and gentlemen, the Affordable Care Act that goes into process today. Get signed up, get covered. Extending health care to millions and millions and millions of Americans. People ask me, what's the big deal about that? And I tell them, look, I have 3 grandchildren, and they're all going to go to school. And I want the child in front of them. I want the child behind them. I want the child to their side and the child to their left. I want all of them healthy. We are in this together. The Affordable Care Act ensures we're going to have a healthy country and healthy Americans, and we need to do that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you already know, the CHC freshman class, like the Democratic freshman class across the board, is the most dynamic, diverse, and impressive group of freshmen I have ever seen. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I came to the Congress in 1981, 33 years in the Congress. This class, not just the 8 Hispanic members, Latino members of the new class, but all of the members are impressive. You're going to see them. I know you've already seen them, but they are going to impress all of you and are impressing all of us. I have no doubt that among today's freshman CHC members is a future speaker, a future majority leader, a future majority whip, and yes, maybe even a future president of the United States. Now, let me just say a word about our caucus chair, Javier Becerra. All right. He has been doing an extraordinary job keeping Democrats united and focused on the issues that America cares about. Jobs and opportunities that grow and sustain a strong middle class. The CHC is already playing a central role in House Democrats' efforts to create jobs and boost our economic competitiveness, which we call, as the Senator said, our Make It in America plan. We believe that if we're going to grow the middle class, we need to make things in America. We need to manufacture, grow things in America. We need to grow jobs in America. And I know that its members, particularly its freshmen, will be critical as we work together to move jobs legislation forward and work to bring a comprehensive immigration to the floor, as I said, this year. The Senate has acted, and now it's up to the House to do the same, sooner rather than later. As I said, the House Democrats, under the leadership of the Hispanic caucus, Ruben Hinojosa, and my good friend Luis Gutierrez, Joe Serrano, and others, and the freshmen that you're just going to meet, they will be in the leadership of helping us pass comprehensive immigration reform. How we engage in reform of our immigration system ought to reflect not only current realities, but also the timeless values that make America great. My father came from Denmark at the age of 32 in 1934. I'm a first-generation Danish American. I like to think that I've made a difference, just as all of you have made a difference. We need to welcome new people into America to grow our country. That is the basis of the American dream, and it's the recipe for a strong economic future for our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the CHCI, members of Hispanic members of Congress, and all your supporters, thank you. What you do makes the Congress stronger and America better. God bless you and God bless our great country. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Hoyer. We're very pleased to have him with us today. Before we jump into the panel, I wanted to take a quick moment to recognize and honor the members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus who are with us today, but who will not be participating on the panel. The panel is for our freshman Latino legislators. So I did want to recognize that we have Representative Ruben Hinojosa, CHCI Chair. Congressman Hinojosa, thank you for being here. We also have Representative Jose Serrano, the Dean of the Hispanic Caucus. Representative Serrano, again, thank you very much. And we have Representative Loretta Sanchez from California. Again, thank you all for your continued support and for everything that you do to make this work possible. It's now my honor to introduce the moderator for our panel this afternoon. But before we do that, I just want to remind you that we can actually engage in this panel by asking questions via social media. So you can send a question to CHCI's microsite at hhm.chci.org/agenda, as well as from the audience. So please prepare a question and get ready to engage with our panel. Without further ado, it's my honor to introduce you to our moderator today. We have Zoraida Sambolin, anchor of CNN's morning show, Early Start, and she's excited to get started, so please help me in welcoming her today.
So I brought my phone, so watch out what you're doing, because I'm tweeting. They said no phones, but there's no way I could do that. Everybody else have their phone? As long as it's off, not off, but, so that it doesn't ring, so it's on vibrate. I'm really excited to be here with you today. There are a lot of folks in the audience, and you all look spectacular. How about a round of applause for you? Yeah. It is an honor for me to be here with you at the CHCI conference. I had a really, really great time hosting a panel of Latinos in the media last year. And this year is even more dynamic with so many emerging and established leaders here. The 113th Congress made history when 36 Hispanic members were elected to the House and the Senate, the largest representation of our community that it has ever had. But it's still not enough. With the Hispanic population pushing to now close to 18%, and the U.S. population soon, we still remain vastly underrepresented in Congress. But the 8 members of the freshman class of the 113th Congress are here today to let us know that our voices are being heard and that we are making progress as a community. And just a quick reminder to spread the word to all of your friends, family, and colleagues to join the discussion today. Watch us live on our microsite, hhm.chci.org. Before I introduce our panel, I just really am hopeful as I see so many wonderful young faces in the audience that our future leaders are sitting here today. And I have to tell you, take advantage of the folks that we have here because they have a lot to share. We're doing social media questions today, but we're also taking questions from you. So as you listen, prepare and think about what you want to know because they are here to answer all your questions. I would like to introduce to you the Latino freshman congressional class representing the 29th District of California. Please welcome Congressman Tony Cárdenas. Representing the 20th District of Texas, please welcome Congressman Joaquin Castro. Representing the 26th District of Florida, please welcome Congressman Joe Garcia. Representing the 1st District of New Mexico, please welcome Congressman Lujan Grisham. Representing the 35th District of California, please welcome Congresswoman Gloria Negrete McLeod. Representing the 36th District of California, please welcome Congressman Raul Ruiz. And finally, representing the 51st District of California, please welcome Congressman Juan Vargas. All right, thank you so much. So we have a lot of panelists here with us this morning. We're going to get opening remarks from each one of them, about 3 minutes, and then we're going to open up our discussion to you. So we will begin with Congressman Cárdenas.
Is this on?
Should be.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for being here today. Again, my name is Tony Cárdenas. I represent the 29th District in California, which is part of the Los Angeles area. And they want me to say a few things about myself. I'm very, very proud to say that both of my parents are from Jalisco, Mexico. And they came to the United States as my father started off as a farm worker and eventually became a construction worker. And I'm the youngest of 11. So I knew my father as my boss and my gardener at work 6 days a week in the summer, that we would go to work together to run the family business. And I learned a lot from my parents, and a lot of their values mean a lot to me. And every single day in this job as an elected official, a congressman, I use those values of hard work, of honesty, and of making sure that I help my neighbor and help my community. I think it's really important for us to understand, especially all of the young people in the room, that whatever you're doing, wherever you come from, this is your country. When I ran for the state assembly in 1996, the LA Times wrote my political obituary. I'd never run for office before in my life. And at the end of reading that several pages of this supposed bad news that I could not win, the kid from Pacoima couldn't win, we weren't going to have the first Latino represent that community in the legislature, they said it's just not going to happen. So what happened that night is a story that was never told to me, came to me through my sister. just by happenstance, she talked to a friend of ours who was helping out on the campaign, and she came to the office. It was about midnight, and I was depressed because I was wondering what the heck did I get myself into. And then I realized, after hearing the story from my sister, for the first time in my life, after hearing that our father in the 1940s in California, working in the fields, he saved a man's life from a fire. It was a day where the gentleman had to burn down the fields, and it got out of control. And my father, who drove a tractor in those fields, drove through the fire to save his life. And the person who told my sister the story was the son, Victor Cervantes Jr., of the man that my father saved his life. But my humble father never told any of his 11 children that beautiful, wonderful story that he was a hero. And it was after reading the LA Times that that story came to me exactly at the right time. That this is my country, and it's what I choose to do that matters. And that day in those fields, other people could hear this man yelling, "Socorro, socorro, help, help me." But my father was the one he chose to drive through that fire and save that man's life. It was his decision that made it happen. Young people, make good decisions every single day. This is the land of opportunity. This is your country, and you will be a greater, better congressman than anybody up here, because you will follow in the footsteps of your parents, of your fathers, your mothers, and of people like us, and we are here for you. Thank you.
Congressman Castro.
Thank you. And first I want to say thank you to CHCI for gathering all of us, and to everybody for being here and for your support. My name is Joaquin Castro, and I represent San Antonio, the 20th Congressional District in Texas. And as some of you may know, I have a twin brother, Juan, who is the mayor. So I'm not the mayor of San Antonio. There is an easy way to tell us apart. I'm a lot better looking than Juan is. Juan and I grew up on the west side of San Antonio. My grandmother had been the first in our family to come to the United States from Coahuila, Mexico, when she was 6 years old. My grandmother came as an orphan with her younger sister, Trinidad, in 1922 through Eagle Pass, Texas. And like many people in her generation, she never made it, even graduated from high school. She lived in a household of 9 or 10 people, and she dropped out before she finished the 4th grade. Because of that, she worked as a maid, a babysitter, and a cook her entire adult life to get by for herself and also to help support her only child, my mom. And my mom and my dad did the same thing for us. They were both the first in their families to go into college. My dad was one of the few Latinos at UT Austin in the early 1960s.
Wow.
He graduated with a math degree in 1963. And of course, my brother and I were very fortunate after that. We grew up in public schools and then went on to Stanford University in California, went off to Harvard Law School, and then we're very honored and privileged to be able to come back home to San Antonio and represent the hometown that we love. And I tell people that story not because I think it's special to our family or even to Mexican Americans or Latinos, but that is the story of America, the story of each generation of Americans doing every single thing that it can to get by for itself and do well, but also to build a better America for future generations. And it is what I call building an infrastructure of opportunity in our country. And I'll leave you with this, which is really my philosophy of government. I believe that just as there is an infrastructure of transportation, a system of streets and roads and highways that helps each of us get to where we want to go on the road, the beauty of America is that throughout the generations as Americans, we have built up an infrastructure of opportunity that allows each of us to get to where we want to go in life. And that has to include certain things: great public schools and universities, a strong healthcare system, including Obamacare, and an economy that's built around well-paying jobs so that when people go to work and put in a hard day's work, they can support themselves and their family members. And congratulations to all of the young people here. Please keep your horizons broad and keep believing that you can do whatever it is you dream you want to do. Thank you.
Congressman Garcia.
So my name is Joe Garcia. I represent the 25th Congressional District of Florida, which is the
southernmost district of the United States. I'm so far south, it's almost like living in the United States. So I want to tell you, I represent a district that's, in terms of inhabitants, over 73% Hispanic. So I have the great luxury of being able to be an advocate on this issue, and I was an advocate on this issue way before. But, you know, the road to politics is very different depending on your community. My grandfather was a yard man, right? He had a 6th grade education, came from Cuba in his 60s. No other country on earth would sort of allow someone that age to sort of come in. And I worked with him, you know, and I was his translator. You know, he'd drive down. Back then, Miami was filled with Americans, so no one spoke Spanish, and he would bring me with him. And then when we saw someone's yard was ugly, he'd said, go knock on his door and tell him his yard is ugly. It was a horrible marketing technique. I got chased out of so many yards. But, you know, I got to work with him, and I spent a lot of time with him, and I enjoyed it. And so one day we were cleaning up, and we were putting the lawnmower back in the truck, and he said, so what are you going to do when you grow up? And I said, well, I'm going to finish high school, then I'm going to go to college, then I'm going to go to law school, and then I'm going to go into politics. You know, he looked at me, his eyes welled up with tears. I'm thinking, look, the old man, he's proud of me. He said, son, there's nothing lower than politicians. So he didn't know much, but he knew yard men were better than politicians. But it explains why we're here and why we ended up here. Because we didn't take the mantle, because we thought that this isn't the right way to go. But I'm telling you it is. If we're going to move our country forward, it means each and every one of you has to challenge up. I'm old enough, not like these other youngsters here. I'm old enough to remember when these dinners were little cubes of cheese, if you were lucky, and some peanuts before they shushed a small group of us out of the room. And I've seen this grow, its potential, its power, and its impact. And that's because people get involved. People like Rubén Hinojosa and Luis Gutierrez open the way, others follow, and you have to fill in the gap. So fill in the breach, fight for this, because we are making a difference, we will make a difference, and finally, we will have comprehensive immigration reform.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Lujan Grisham, and I represent New Mexico's 1st District. Okay, so New Mexico. I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. So now, we all have very unique stories. Mine is a bit different. My family has been in New Mexico for more than 400 years. So I'm probably a 16th generation. We can prove 12 so far. And I'm, in fact, not the first to go to college. I'm not even the first to have a law degree or a graduate degree. I'm a 7th generation graduate degree Hispanic from New Mexico.
Wow. That's rare.
Thank you. But I'm the first native New Mexican Hispanic woman to ever be elected from a Hispanic majority state to the U.S. House of Representatives. And like my colleagues, it's about making sure that our voices are heard. I had a totally different path. I was going to do engineering and copyright law and didn't think about public policy at all. And somewhere in the back of my brain, suppressed, was that my parents were completely involved in social services and giving back to their community, but I had forgotten it until one day, because my father was the first public health dentist in New Mexico. We had a dental office in our garage. I thought all the dentists practiced dentistry in their garage, that was normal. And he did that because there were so many people with children who couldn't afford dental care, that my father saw patients every single weekend for as long as he could. He still holds the record in New Mexico. I lost him 2 years ago for the longest continuous license, 54 years, and he practiced every single day, every single year, because he couldn't stand the thought that there wasn't health justice for families. And that was echoed by my mother, because my youngest sister was developmentally disabled and blind. And at the time, in the 60s, I think she might have been one of the first special education students in the state of New Mexico. And it wasn't a great situation. And in fact, when she was little, all the doctors and all the social care folks told my parents, the only thing you can do with a child like that is put that child in an institution. And my mom fought back. And my sister never went to an institution. She made sure that other children didn't go to an institution. She closed down all the bad institutions for developmentally disabled children and adults. And my parents were incredible about giving back to their family, but somehow I forgot it until I was doing volunteer work for senior citizens. And I saw more health injustice. I saw more nursing home abuse. I went undercover in a nursing home. I became a cabinet secretary by accident for aging and long-term services and then the Department of Health. I did that for 3 different governors, 17 years, 2 different parties. And I realized that the only way to solve health justice and equities is to come to Congress and to do something about it at the federal level. So I am so excited to be in this position. I lost my first race. I got a second chance to come here and make a difference. And now what we need to do to build on the Affordable Care Act, we need health justice for all immigrant families in the United States and New Mexico. And to do that, I'm gonna just steal the wise words of my colleague Joe Garcia. Having you fill in those gaps, continue to advocate, work to be in these positions, support these efforts at the local level and the national level, there's no doubt in my mind that there isn't anything we can succeed at. Thank you for having me today.
Wow. I feel inadequate.
No way.
I'm Gloria Negrete McLeod, and I represent the 35th Congressional District in California, which is about 30 miles east of Los Angeles, but we are totally in a different world than LA. I represent part of LA County and the rest in San Bernardino County, where I've resided for the last 43 years. I don't have anything exciting, like I never helped my grandfather mow lawns. I'm not a twin. My father didn't save anybody. I'm not a doctor. I wasn't a Jesuit. I wasn't the House Speaker in Texas. I came from the community. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. My mother was born and raised in California. My father came when he was 3 years old, and at that time you could cross across the river from Mexico and drop a penny in a stile and come across. So my people have been here since the early 1900s in Los Angeles. But I did grow up in Los Angeles, went to the schools there, lived in my district now for 43 years. I'm a mother of 10.
Wow.
Grandmother of 25 and great-grandmother of 29. So ha, ha, ha.
Yeah, she's not good at this at all, right?
She has a great sense of humor.
So I started out as working in a community college, deciding I could run for the school board there. Won on my first election when everybody said, well, you get name recognition and maybe the next time you get elected. I said, thanks for sharing. And we walked and I got elected. Then the next election I went for was the Assembly. Then I served there for 6 years in the California State Assembly. And then I said, well, I can run for the Senate. Served there for 6 years in the State Senate. And now I'm here. So other than that, I represent my community to the best of my ability. People that are like your parents, like you, that's what my community is made of. Working class people that don't generally work in my district. They generally go out to LA, to Orange County. So what I'd like to do for my district is to bring good paying jobs so that my people could stay there in their district and work there. So other than that, we're here to try to do the best job. I got to tell you, we got here. All of us ran. We're going to come here and we're going to change the philosophy here. I don't know if we can. I don't know if we can. But we're going to do the best job we can. for representing our people that pretty much in my district look like me. So anyway, thank you for allowing us to be here today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Raul Ruiz. I'm an emergency medicine physician. I represent the 36th district in California that's in the Coachella Valley. I believe most of you know it as Coachella, the festival. And I must admit that I am here only because of the American dream. I am here because of the hard work that my parents put in the fields, their calloused hands and their tired backs with minimal rest day after day after day in order to give their children opportunities that they never had. I am from that farm worker community, just like the chile verde, the uva, and the sandias are from our fields. And I will always say that, and I will always be proud of our origins, because that's what make us who we are. You see, like I mentioned, both my parents worked in the fields. I grew up in a trailer. It was one of those trailers where you could unscrew the tabletop and the pole, put the tabletop on the seats, and put the seat back cushions, and that's where my brother and I shared a bed. My older brother was the first to graduate from high school in the entire family. And he was a high school counselor who paid for my college application in order for me to be pre-med at UCLA. And for many of us who don't have families with a lot of money or friends in high places or any sense of political clout, and education was the only way that we can get out and fly to come home and serve our communities. And I made a promise when I was 17 years old, living in a very underserved community and watching so much needless suffering, that one day I would be a physician and come back and serve the community. And with that support and the community support, I went to UCLA, graduated magna cum laude, went to Harvard Medical School, did a joint degree program with the Harvard Kennedy School of Government.
Unbelievable.
I did my emergency medicine training at the University of Pittsburgh and went back to Harvard to focus on humanitarian and disaster aid and received a master's in public health. And Harvard wrote an article in their paper when I graduated from the MPH in 2007 that they believed that I was the first Latino to have 3 graduate degrees from Harvard University. And a promise is a promise, and our roots always carry us back home in one sense, way, or form. And after 17 years, I went back home to fulfill that promise and serve the community as an emergency medicine physician in the area's only nonprofit hospital. And the first place I went to in order to start doing my community advocacy work were in farm worker trailer parks, providing free health care, health education, starting a free clinic for the uninsured. And now I mentor about 200 students, 80% Latino, 85% underserved, 65% first-generation college students, so they can chase their dreams, follow it, catch it, and bring it back home as well as physicians. And being out in the community, my students came up to me crying that they had to defer their dream in order to work in the fields, in the restaurants, and constructions in order to save enough money to pay for one more semester of class. My seniors would tell me that they went days without eating in order to save money so that they can buy their medicine. And my patients in the emergency department came gasping for air because they were recently unemployed, recently uninsured, and couldn't afford their diuretic that would help them breathe better. And those are the reasons why an emergency medicine physician, in searching for wellness and health in their communities with all the social determinants of health, would want to run for the U.S. Congress in order to acquire another toolbox so that we can become the architects of our own American and our own collective dream that we have in our community. And we are redefining that dream as a community. It is no longer the dream of owning a house, a white picket fence, and having a nice car and a dog. It is the pursuit of excellence with personal responsibility in whatever you do that makes the value that is a foundation for that American dream. But the second value is serving others with social responsibility. And never forget that, yes, you are responsible for your neighbor. You are responsible for this great country. And yes, you are the captains of your destiny and the architects of your life and the architects of the American dream. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Juan Vargas. I'm from California also. And my parents are from Jalisco. Los Altos de Jalisco, by the way, too. Not just Jalisco. Los Altos. And Gloria is my mother. I'm one of 10 kids also, but she was describing. I said, wait a minute. 1 of 10 kids? I'm one of 10 kids. My mom has 32 grandchildren. And hey, yeah, you are my mother. No. And the other thing I always have to say after Dr. Ruiz speaks, because people always coming up and ask us afterwards, I'll just say it now, es soltero. Oh. People always ask. I might as well just say it. But anyway, I grew up in San Diego, went to school at USD, and then after graduating, I entered the Jesuits. I studied to be a priest. So I was in the Jesuits for about 5 years. As part of that time, I was in El Salvador. Anyone from El Salvador? In Chalatenango. I was out in Chalatenango in an orphanage during the war, very difficult time. And then I came back. I went to New York as a Jesuit, was there for a couple of years, and then I left the Jesuits. Then I decided to go I got a graduate degree at Fordham University in philosophy. Then I went to Harvard for law school. Then I went back to San Diego to practice law. Started practicing law, and then what had happened was that they had passed in California a new redistricting. So the congressional districts were redrawn, and where I live is on the border in San Diego. They had drawn a district where a Latina or Latino could run for Congress. And there were 5 white men, no offense for any white men out there, but there were 5 white men running, no women, no people of color running for that congressional district. So the Union Tribune, the paper, wrote this long article, basically said, que vergüenza. What a shame that the Latinos have always said they want a district and not one of them is running. What a shame. And I belonged to this group of Latino lawyers down there, La Raza lawyers, and we were all ticked off about, it's terrible, it's terrible. So we tried to recruit somebody, and we couldn't recruit anyone. And so one day I missed the meeting. And I came back, and they said, we found someone. It's going to be great. I said, that's fantastic. Who? And they said, you. And I said, no. I said, the only politicians I'd ever met were in El Salvador, and they were trying to kill me. I didn't have a very high, view of these guys. So anyway, they finally convinced me to do it. I was a lawyer at the time at a large corporate firm. So I quit my job. And I ran for this seat. And they were right. We couldn't win. We lost. But I did all sorts of crazy things. I held out signs saying Vargas for Congress and all this stuff. And we came very, very close to winning. And so I thought, okay, I showed the flag. I did my duty. So I went back into corporate life again. And unfortunately, a lot of the young people said, no, that's great. You're out there. You got to keep running. So I ran and became the first Latino ever elected to the San Diego City Council. It wasn't appointed, but elected. And it's kind of weird because that wasn't that long ago, in 93. And then I ran again for Congress. And I lost again. And then I ran again for Congress. And I lost again. And so for all you losers out there like me, I ran again. And this time I won. It took me 4 times. But we finally got a Latino. We finally got a Latino representing the border.
For 21 years.
There had never been a Latina or Latino representing the Mexico-California border in the history of the United States. It's outrageous. So anyway, I'm here. I'm very excited about being here. I believe very much in social justice and look forward to working with all of you. I do want to thank all the sponsors, however. We really appreciate all the sponsors that are here that are helping our community. Thank you for stepping up. We recognize you. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you.
So when I got up this morning to go to work, I thought either with the government shutdown, we would either have everybody show up or nobody show up. So I was a little worried about you, Congressman, because it's like, what happened? But you finally made it. Congressman Gallego, thank you for being here.
Wow. Pues para mí es un privilegio muy grande estar aquí con cada uno de mis colegas tan distinguidos, particularmente la oportunidad de representar el Distrito 23 de Texas. It's such a privilege to be here. Such a distinguished group of folks. My name is Pete Gallego. I represent the 23rd District in Texas. My hometown is a small town in the mountains of West Texas named Alpine. It's about 6,000 people. And it's very unusual for someone from a 6,000 people place to be elected to Congress. I come from a family, my family had been in Alpine for several generations in that town. And so it's easy to get your start in politics because you're related to half of them. And so my start is, my father and my mother had been in and around politics for a very long time. My family owned a restaurant from 1917 to 1997 for 80 continuous years. And that restaurant was really the center of activity, particularly on the south side of the tracks, because it was a different Texas in those days. And the Latino community was the Latino community, and the Anglo community was the Anglo community. And so I watched, and I grew up in a situation where I watched my parents always do things that were really aimed at making the world a better place. When the bank in Alpine, Texas wouldn't lend money to Latinos, my parents got together with some of their fellow businessmen and women in Alpine, and they founded a credit union. And that credit union took shape on my parents' dining room table. So every day and every night at all hours, the phone would ring and people would come in to borrow money or sign promissory notes or make payments. That happened every day. And as I wondered, why are we doing this? My parents each had a conversation with me about the importance of giving back and about the importance of making a difference and about the importance, he said, I don't want you to be a kid that says, you got yours, and you're okay, and so you don't do anything for anybody else. He said, because it's a community responsibility to take care of our own and create our own future. And so with that message, my dad got really sick one year, and he needed some help. I have two sisters, but neither one of them was in a position to move home to run a restaurant. So I went from Austin, where I was a lawyer in the AG's office, back to Alpine to run a restaurant. And miraculously, my father got well, and he wanted his restaurant back, which was good for both of us. But my father said, he had this picture of our state representative on his wall, and he said, you've always talked about running for office. If you want to run for office, you should do it this year. He said, because the gentleman who's running for office is a guy named Clady Williams, who is running on the Republican side. And my dad and my mom said he's from Alpine, but raised next door in Fort Stockton. A lot of the local businessmen and women, the Democratic Anglo establishment, is going to vote in the Republican primary this year because they want him to be governor. And so my parents' analysis was exactly right. I was 27 years old. I ran for the legislature. I'd never really done anything that hardcore before. And people told me, you're too young, and, oh, by the way, this district has never had a Latino, you're the wrong color. But I ended up getting elected. I served 22 years in the State House. I had a wonderful time. I had the privilege of being in the leadership. I had the privilege of being one of those people who is really in the room when all of the key decisions were made. And then Congress came along, and frankly, it had not really been on my bucket list. But I will tell you that being here, even today, that you can't help but feel a sense of almost embarrassment at what's going on around here and the dysfunction that we see. But even today, I have to tell you that there's 315 million people in this country. And if you look at each one of us, we're one of 435 in the U.S. House of Representatives. And from the stories that you've heard and the things that you've learned about these folks, you know that it is very true that this is a nation of opportunity. The opportunities are ours. The opportunities are there, but we have to work for them, and we have to work for them together. So my focus as a member of Congress has been to help create that opportunity for others, because if you look back and you think about what your grandfather did and where you are in your life and the difference in that generation, that's the difference that I want to see when my little boy, who's 8, who was 7 pounds and 7 ounces the day that I held him for the very first time, and now is nearly, hits me at the shoulders. I want that little boy and your little boy and your grandkids and your great-grandkids to have even more opportunities than we have had. And that's what this is all about to me. Thank you so much for this vote.
So a great sense of social responsibility here. I'm going to get to a question that I actually have scripted, but I'd like the folks that are in the audience helping me out to get a question from the audience available for me, and also one available on, I have my social media question. I'm going to start with the one here because I think this is important. There are a lot of hot button issues, right, that affect our community. When we hyper-focus on them, access to education and immigration are 2 hot button issues. So what I want to know is, in the time that you have served so far, what have been some of the major challenges, maybe some that you anticipated, maybe some that you didn't, outside of the government shutdown? And chime in. This is an organic conversation. Anybody want to go ahead.
I'll tell you that my biggest frustration as a member of Congress has been the intransigence and the inability or unwillingness of members to come to the middle and negotiate. For me, my parents didn't really teach me, or my grandparents didn't really teach me about Republicans and Democrats. They taught me about doing the right thing. And nobody here seems to look at it in that direction. The leadership is hardcore, and it's very difficult to reach across the aisle. And for me, I think that's the single biggest frustration of being a member of Congress, the fact that you cannot move the system. I think Gloria kind of alluded to that when she said we may not be able to change it. We're going to work very hard at changing it, and I think over time we're going to be successful at it. But today, this is an example what you see of how hard it is to make a difference immediately.
I think the Congresswoman was alluding to, sometimes it seems like an insurmountable task, very complicated.
Probably, and I'm going to chime in. Well, I think probably, I can't speak for my colleagues, but you might hear that we're all a little frustrated at one process or another. It's a very process-driven body and environment. And one theme, at least I heard, is that these are a group of advocates, regardless of how you were advocating. I know as a mother of 2, you got to be a pretty fierce advocate to be a mother of 10. So you come at it from that aspect, and each of us wants to make a difference immediately for our communities. But I haven't lost optimism or hope even after the Affordable Care Act shut down last night, because we're seeing glimpses of a reemergence of moderate Republicans who are looking for a path out, I think. The question really is about how quickly that path emerges and how sustainable it is in the context of a House that's been divided. And I think some other positive things is that I believe this represents the most bipartisan freshman class, probably in the history of freshman classes. We're doing a great job. And we do it collectively or independently or in small caucuses, depending upon what those are. But we're all working, and I haven't given up hope. I don't think anybody here has on immigration reform. We're definitely, we got stalled over the summer that I think was a major disappointment, because after we passed the Violence Against Women's Act, where you saw Republican women in the Senate step up, step out. I'll quote the book, lean in. All right? When we saw that happen in the House. Well, we know that exists. Now we just have to find a way to spark that catalyst and break some of those traditional efforts to hold the caucuses together. And in the first time, I think, for this country, is to be in a situation where a minority of a caucus, either party, is in a position to control what happens, what gets on the floor, what goes to committee, how we're all engaged. And that's a big surprise that we don't, particularly as a large freshman class, that we can't create a different dynamic. So that's been the biggest surprise and the biggest frustration. But I still have great optimism. And maybe it's because, and I hope you do too, after you heard the stories, this is an incredible group. I feel kind of like their mother too. They're young and, well, except for you, Joe. They're passionate.
I want to point out I'm also single, just so Raul, I'm a little worried about that there.
We have a great sense of humor. You can see that we know each other very well, that we like each other, that we get along. That's a dynamic that belongs in Congress. And that's the path, I think, towards a sustainable future for policymaking.
It'd be nice if we had some Republicans in the mix as well and we had that kind of camaraderie, wouldn't it?
I think that's actually a big deal because they tell you that if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog. But we're all the exception to that rule because I think we all are very close friends, and you see a cohesion in us that you don't see in a lot of places.
If you have a question in the audience, could you raise your hand? Because we have some folks that will come to you with a microphone. So keep your hand up until somebody comes over to you with a microphone. I want to take this social media question because I really want to steer the conversation towards the people who are here in the audience today. And I think, what they want to know is really how you got to where you are, which you talked about a little bit, but also how do we increase these numbers? 52 million strong, almost 18% of the population. So how do we increase representation in Congress?
Well, I think that one of the things that we are very, very underrepresented is in the boardrooms in America. Everybody understands when you see the campaigns, the presidential campaign, I don't know, it's now in a B, not millions, but billions of dollars that are vested in campaigns throughout the country. That money, by and large, doesn't come from individual households. That money comes from corporate America and corporations that are doing business around the world. So I think that one of the things that we need to do to empower the Hispanic community, the Latino community, is to make sure that we take opportunities to create lists of Latinos and Latinas who have gone to Harvard, who have gone to Stanford, who have law degrees, who have experience in running a healthcare system for a state. We need you to put your names up, and you need to volunteer so that we can put your name forward so that you can be the first Latino or Latina on that corporate board that is now worth billions of dollars, that are doing business in every household in our community. I think that is the frontier that we have yet to crack. And I think that with our empowerment of being greater numbers in Congress, it's our responsibility that every time one of those corporations walks into our office and they want to tell us their story, we need to make sure that they walk out with a homework on what they're going to do to create diversity at the highest levels in their corporations.
What do you all see here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 women.
2 incredible women.
Yes.
But us 6, you still beat us 6 all the time.
That is true, actually. There is scientific evidence that says that is true. I just want to point out, Nielsen is here in the house, right? They have some really fantastic research that says that women are the ones who are heading the household. They're the ones making the decisions. They're the ones that are graduating from college.
That is all true. While that is all true, it is very hard to get women to participate in the political system. A, they say they don't want to do it. 2, they've got families that they want to take care of it. They don't like politics. They say it's dirty, it's nasty, people. 3, 4, they can't raise the money that men do. It's a proven fact. I served in the state legislature for 12 years. Men hang around together, they do that. Women don't seem to need to do that. But it's much harder. You couldn't get women to run for the state legislature, much less to run for the Congress.
So how do we change that?
So women have to be empowering of women, and we don't do that. We don't help ourselves. We don't help ourselves. We seem to think for some reason, while we are the masters of the house, we make the decisions, generally speaking. Your husband says, can I wear these socks? Why are you wearing those socks? Take them off. Right? Take the t-shirt off. I don't like it. Go change. We do that. You tell the kids, no, you're not eating that. Go to bed. We can do that with finesse.
And a chancla.
And a chancla.
I want to add to what Gloria said. Women are also in a very different social structure. All right, even all of these wonderful women, all of you who are working full time, this has now become a 2 full-time working household environment in this country. But we are raising our children. I'm a caregiver. I'm the primary caregiver for my mother. Women's long-term financial security is clearly at stake. The Hispanic, Latino community, our long-term strategic efforts are at stake because we stay home and do informal caregiving more than any other minority in this country. And those are the issues, I think, that keep women also from even having the opportunity to run. Is that we have to figure out daycare, we have to figure out community support, and we have to support women to run and do what Gloria did with 10 children. We have to tell those stories and make sure that there is a platform and support for women and their families so that women can succeed in a policy-making, a political environment.
But the one thing we do have is that women come in a little later life. I could be Juan's mother. I could be Juan's mother. So I didn't even get involved till all my children were gone. So I'm actually the grandmother to all of these people. So just take into consideration that women have to empower women a lot more, and they have to be supportive when women run. Don't just lip service. Don't say, oh yeah, she's really nice. But when she comes to you and says, can you help me? Don't do that. Say, yeah, I can help you with $1. I can help you with $2. I can help you on your campaign. I can phone for you. I can do that. So until women become their own allies, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Congressman Cárdenas wants to jump in. So
I think
male
it's important.
perspective
You pointed out that Latinas need to support Latinas, but Latinas deserve the support of everybody. For example, when I just left the Los Angeles City Council, and we had a changeover on the city council. We have term limits, 15 city council members. There was a mayor's race, a controller's race, and a city attorney's race. All of those races are going on at the same time. And I was the only outgoing elected official in the city of Los Angeles, second largest city in the country, to support a woman, a Latina, in fact. And now, after that election cycle, after staying up at 2, 3 in the morning, helping her and her campaign every single day, every single night, raising money, doing all the things I needed to do, not getting my phone calls returned because they thought my Latina was going to lose. Well, she won, and now she's the only woman elected official in the entire city of LA.
Fantastic.
Not a woman mayor, not a woman controller, not a woman city attorney. 15 council members. There's only one female elected in all of the city of LA elected official structure. But the thing is, my point to you is, it's not just up to Latinas to support Latinas. We need to support our own every single time we get a chance.
I'm going to take a question from the audience.
I'm Charlie Erickson with Hispanic Link News Service here in Washington. And I have a question just for 6 of you 8 people, and I want to, and maybe particularly to Vargas. Have you ever, well, first of all, I was dealing with candidates for Hispanics for office back in the 60s and the 70s, and all of them had bigotes. And I'm looking up here at 6 clean-shaven males, and it's sort of the first advice that the candidates we had was shave your damn mustache if you want to get elected.
I did mine this morning.
I'm not sitting next to you ever again. Ever.
I do have a question.
Your question, sir.
Did any of you 6 males ever have a bigote?
Yeah.
And
yeah, I did. I grew.
Shave it so you could win office, and do you think you would have lost if you'd kept it?
Yeah.
I grew a beard. I served 5 terms in the state legislature, and in my last term in 2011, I had a beard for about half the session, and it was fine.
Yeah. You know, I always had a beard going through college and in the Jesuits. I always had a beard. When I went to law school, I had a beard. When I practiced law, I had a beard. The day I decided to run for office, I shaved my beard, mustache and beard, and I also changed my name. I grew up as Paco, and my friends call me Paco. Paco's not my real name, it's a sobrenombre, it's a nickname. My real name is Juan. So I went back to my name Juan that no one knew even because it was never used. Everyone always called me Paco. But I thought, you know, if I use Paco, they're going to say, well, wait a minute, that's an alias, it's not a real name. It's not your name, because I'm Juan Carlos, not Juan Francisco. Paco is the diminutive of Francisco. But I got it because as I am now, I was chubby growing up. And so it's como la paca de alfalfa. And so I changed my name back to Juan and ran as Juan Vargas, not Paco Vargas. But I say that because those things actually do make a difference. And also on a very practical level, as someone who's lost a lot of campaigns, when I first ran, I didn't know anything about running for politics because we didn't have role models and we were challenging the Democratic establishment. So I didn't know anything about precinct lists. I didn't know anything about targeting. I didn't know anything about messaging. You know, we went from house to house starting in San Isidro, and I'd go, you know, each house I'd knock, estamos contigo, Juan, por supuesto, vamos a ganar. Tienes que ser ciudadano para votar. You know? It's like, yeah, you gotta be, yeah, you know, you do actually. And so all those mechanics of how to run are very important. And those are the things that I think we need to teach each other. And some of us have gotten pretty darn good at it. We just got a Latina elected to the assembly from San Diego. And these are seats now that are great because they're seats that have always been Democratic, but now they're Latinas and Latinos, and we're going to hold those seats. Because of the practical aspects that we know how to run elections now.
The first time I shaved my mustache was when I ran for the state assembly, my very first election. And Alex Padilla, who's the president of NALEO now, he was my campaign director back then, and he had a mustache throughout my campaign, and he got rid of it when he ran for the city council and was successful in his race.
You picked up your microphone. Are you going to share a story about a mustache?
You know, mine is a little different. I had a mustache for years and years and years, even when I got elected. There was some talk about my looking like the Frito Bandito. But it didn't stop me from... but what happened for me was my wife said, te ves muy viejo. And te vas a ver mejor, sí. And so I shaved, and all of a sudden it was true. All of a sudden everybody said, wow, have you lost weight? You look so young now. And so now I shave every day. It's the worst part of my day. But I shave every day just because people will say, hey, you don't look so bad.
You know, at first I didn't think it was a legitimate question, and I'm glad that you asked it. Thank you very much. Do I have another question in the audience? I do. I have a hand up over there. Keep your hands up till somebody comes over. Actually, don't keep it up because there are so many hands up, you're going to get tired. So I'll ask that again. I'll take the question in the back.
Hi, my name is Montserrat Garibay. I'm the Vice President of Education Austin, and I'm a National Board Certified teacher. But my question is, what can we do to make sure that immigration reform passes? I'm also a teacher, and my sister is still undocumented. We passed deferred action. It's not enough. Immigration reform needs to happen this year. What can we do, and how can we help you?
Let me, since I serve on that committee, let me tell you I agree with you. But I want you to understand what's happening in this budget shutdown is very similar to what's happening in immigration. It's the same subtext, right? An inability to engage in a broader debate that we all know that the majority of the people in the country agree.
That's right.
That there is an ample middle. Michelle referred to it when we passed VAWA, right? I thought, okay, now we're done, right? And by the way, constitutionally, that's what the United States Congress was supposed to be. We were supposed to be the popular will of the country, where ideas were thrown around and maybe too popular, and the Senate would stop it if they went too far. But the reality is immigration reform, the time has come. But not only has the time come, but the reality is that we need it. We need it. The other day I was debating this guy I know, and he says to me, well, Joe, how would you feel if someone broke into your house? And I said, well, somebody broke into my house, filled my refrigerator with fresh fruit and vegetable, took my kids to school in the morning, took care of my grandmother, painted the walls, and then cut the lawn. I think I'd owe him money. So the reality is that this debate, if there's something that this country has shown that it does better than any nation in the world, is make Americans. There may be Americans with a little bit of an accent, but in the end, we're all in this together because this country gives us that opportunity. But I tell you, you've got to keep pushing. You cannot settle. Now, in the next few days, you're going to see an immigration bill. Steny referred to it. You're not all going to love it. I don't love it. I know that everyone sitting here could draft a much better immigration bill that you would all, or generally most of us would like. But of course, what we're trying to do is move this debate forward. We can't make the perfect the enemy of the good. And when we take that step forward, we'll come back. Because we're not going to leave anyone behind. We're going to fix it. We're going to come back and continue moving this. But we have to have a real vision of where we're going and how to get there. And already, folks like Pete and Mr. Vargas on the border have moved that debate in a better place, right? Because they stood out and held a position that I think is very strong. So when we move on this bill, it'll be better. It still won't be perfect, but we need to keep moving, keep pushing, and the threat of that vote has to be there. The last election, this was central, but it's that reality. I lived in Miami, right? I lived in Miami after the Mario boat lift. I remember people with bumper sticker, with the last American leaving Miami, please bring the flag. It was just offensive stuff. You know what? Those guys live in the north now, right? The city kept growing. It's a beacon of hope. It's a place immigrants come. And it is precisely that is happening across the entire nation. And where you see the barking loudest, like in Arizona, you will also see that it will collapse fastest. Because people will take the spot. They will make it. Someday Pete Wilson will have a statue built for him. It'll be at the offices of the California Democratic Party. Because he created an opportunity that changed the dynamic. They challenged us. And this is a challenge for the Hispanic community, and we have to meet the challenge. We have to fight every day and make sure this happens, because we're not making lives better for ourselves or the undocumented. We're making America better, and we have to be committed to that. Yep.
Congressman Castro.
Well, you asked about what it's going to take to get it passed. On October 5th, as many of you probably know, there are going to be rallies throughout the country where people can go essentially voice their support for comprehensive reform. And then on October 8th, we're supposed to have a rally here in Washington. And I hope that all of that will continue despite what's going on. But the people in Washington need to hear how strongly the American people support comprehensive reform. If you look at the support for reform, it comes literally from every corner, every spectrum, every place on the spectrum of American politics. The evangelical community, the business community, the advocacy community, from liberal to conservative. There is no reason that comprehensive immigration reform should not pass in this Congress.
And yet it does not seem to get the priority that it deserves, right?
Correct, but the thing is, one of the things that I talked about big business, understand that the pressure is on the Republican members of Congress in the Senate and in our House to go ahead and put a vote up on both floors to get it to the president, because these corporations need their workers. They need their workers, whether it's in the poultry industry, whether it's in the farming interest, whether it's in the tech industry or what have you. Do not let up, ladies and gentlemen. You might be coming from a slightly different place than the biggest corporations in the world, but the bottom line is you are on the same track. So don't let up. Like Joe says, do not let up. Please don't let up, because there are pressure behind the scenes from the biggest corporations in the world. They are pissed off that this bill has not advanced. They need their workers, so don't give up.
Can I add one thing, and that is, I wish the business community would step up even stronger. Because I can't tell you how many times I've been watching TV and there's an ad about one thing or another. Call your congressman about X. Call your congressman about Y. Call your congressman about Z. How many times in recent, the last few months, have you seen a commercial put forth by the business community that says, call your members of Congress about immigration reform? Because truthfully, I haven't seen that. And, when people are passionate about things like tort reform, or they're passionate about whatever they really put their money where their mouth is. Well, I want people to put their money where their mouth is on immigration reform, because I think that's really.
I'm going to take your question. Whoever is running the social media down here, if you could just scroll it down a little bit more so I could see the entire question, I would appreciate it. There's one sitting in there from a Jorge Gomez from San Antonio. I'm not able to read the first line. So whoever's scrolling it, if you could scroll it down, I will take the question, please.
I'll be very brief. As one who was here as a member of Congress and when we had just 4 of us, I want you to know you're a dream. You're an absolute dream. We could have never. Thank you. We could have never thought that it would get to this point. And I would just ask, it's not a question, but a statement. I'm old enough to remember. And I want everybody in this audience to know that it's their responsibility to be helpful and to support each and every one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Garcia.
I'll take that question in a minute. I'm going to do this one on social media first. As a community server, this is Jorge Gomez from San Antonio. He says, as a community server, how can we encourage the Latino community to go out and vote?
That is a $20 question. You know, I don't know about any other state. I know in California, we are terrific, especially as a Democratic Party, to go out and register a humongous amount of people. And you can register tons and tons of people. But the thing is, how do you get them to vote? You register them and you register them and you register them. Let's say you register 10,000. And we can do that. You know, we're all good and everybody registers. And you get 2,000 to vote. So how do we do that? How do we get them out to vote? I mean, for the amount of money that everybody serves, that spends to get elected, you could buy everybody a brand new pair of shoes. But, you know, we can't get them to get out.
I mean, I think part of the challenge is really neglect. And you cannot count on political campaigns to do it. Because political campaigns will target consistent voters. So they will essentially miss the same people over and over again, right? You need an organization, and finally in Texas, there are a few organizations now that are working on this, but you need an organization that essentially flips that script and goes to everybody that's not voting and either registers them or mobilizes them to go vote. And the problem is especially pernicious in states that are not battleground states. So Latinos in Colorado or Ohio, for example, will be asked a lot more to go vote than Latinos in Texas. And that's been a big problem for us in Texas. That's finally starting to change, but it's going to take a lot of work that doesn't just involve political campaigns.
One of the things that is now allowed in almost every state in the nation, in the old days, you needed to have a reason to be an absentee voter, a reason to get your ballot in the mail, and you have a few weeks usually in most states to go ahead and vote. And that is becoming a larger percentage of the actual participating voters in California. So one of the things that we can do as community members is encourage people to become a permanent absentee voter. And so, for example, in California, 30 days before the actual end of the election cycle, those voters just got their ballot in the mail. So that gives you 30 days to go badger them, bug them, knock on their door every single day until they finally say, if you go away, if I vote, will you go away? Whatever, just vote, right? I'm kind of half joking, but that's the truth. You're absolutely right, Gloria. If we just leave it to that one-off opportunity to get them to vote and they don't vote, then we're missing an opportunity. Latinos are one of the worst communities when it comes to voter participation and voter registration. So what we need to do is use all the tools that we have, such as getting as many people as possible to register. And once we get them to register, have them become an absentee ballot voter, meaning they're going to have 30 days to stare at that thing, and that means you or I have 30 days to keep bugging them to finally participate and vote. And then when they vote, that becomes empowerment. The U.S. senators will stop in that neighborhood once they see the voting participation go up, and then you're going to see presidents come to those neighborhoods or what have you. I'll give you one last example. I met a guy in Texas, Alonso Cantu, who happens to have done well for himself as a businessman, and he has spearheaded a not-for-profit that not only does voter registration, but it does voter education. And I'll be honest with you, that's the first time I've seen a community organic Latino created organization actually do voter education. It can be done. We just have to spend a lot more time investing in our community and making sure that our people get out to vote.
Well, and it does make a difference practically because Texas, for example, there are 4 majority minority states. Texas is the only one that is not Democratic. So you take Texas and California, for example. Latinos in California vote at a rate that is about 10% lower than white Californians. In Texas, Latinos in Texas vote at a rate that is 25% lower than white Texans. So there's a huge gap in those 2 states.
Well, the other thing to think about is that it's not just our challenge, it's everybody's challenge. And this next time around in a lot of states, you have this really, really bad thing called voter ID laws. And the voter ID laws are going to make it a lot harder for people, especially elderly people in our community, to participate. And so it's not just us, it's not just our job to get people out. I hope that you all understand that wherever you live, wherever you're from, whatever your network is, it's your job to help get people out to vote as well.
And I want to really hit and I know we've got other questions, what Pete Gallego said. You know, with the recent Supreme Court decision and states already before that really rolling back voter access and removing your constitutional protections, we're going to have to fight to restore that. There are measures in Congress, but also we've got to get it in the core educational system. People have to value their voice. And I don't know that we've done a very good job teaching that to our children and to young people. And so we're creating an environment of apathy, and that has to end. And that will help shore up those gaps. And that's something that you guys can do.
I think that's great. Boots on the ground, young folks, right? They have a tremendous impact. I'm going to take the question in the back, then I'll do this one.
Hello, Celestina Garcia from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yay!
As
a constituent.
As a 2013 NHLI participant, all of us are graduating tonight, going back into our communities. I'm a mentor, but I don't have political background. I don't have family in politics. What do you give to me to take back? Because I do mentor strong Latinas and Latinos and community members. How do I support them in knowing how to create relationships that support them to become politicians when they're fearful of getting involved and having to play a game that changes their ethics or has them really bump up against not being authentic and what they bring from our cultural values?
I think I can answer that one since I'm probably the only person here who have never held public office before. And I'll tell you a story that I hope will highlight what it takes. When I was in undergrad, I applied to all the medical schools in California, and the only school out of state I applied to was Harvard Medical School because I had some friends from Brawley and other places that told me, just try it out, al aventón, see what they say. And so I did, and I got accepted. And I remember my pre-med counselor told me one day, he said, Raul, you have to make this decision on your own because it's a very personal decision because it's going to be where you spend the next 4 most miserable years of your life. And I went home one day and my father saw that I was just deep in thought. I was cleaning tables for my brother. He had started in a restaurant at that time, so I just went home and started working there to get my mind off things. And my father said, what's on your mind? I said, I have to choose a medical school. And so he said, okay, well, let's have a family meeting. You know what I'm talking about. So I said, Dad, I think I got this one, on my own. It's a very personal decision. He goes, don't be ridiculous. Come on, sit down. So we're sitting around the table, and I'm telling him about UCLA. It offered me a full ride. It was close to home. I knew the people there. I knew the hospitals. And he stops me, and he says, no, mijo, you have to go to Harvard. And I'm looking at him like, Harvard? You don't love me no more? Like, me vas a mandar al frío? You're going to send me to Boston? You're only going to see me once a year, maybe, if we're lucky? He says, no, mijo, I'll tell you why. He said, because when I go to work and the look in my boss's face when he asked me where my son got to medical school, and I tell him Harvard, he said, "Mijo, you have to go to Harvard." So I chose, and this is the point, I chose Harvard not only to give my dad bragging rights, but I chose Harvard to leave, to go to Boston, to get out of my comfort zone. Because to develop as a leader, to fulfill your mission in serving others to the best of your ability in your pursuit of excellence, you have to exceed your own expectations. You have to get out of your comfort zone. And that's exactly the same decision I made practicing emergency medicine and an ER and being out doing public health work, and everything I knew in terms of as a physician is to get out of that comfort zone to go into this career or this realm and to acquire this toolbox. And so oftentimes when you make that connection, when you excel your own expectations, when you demand excellence of yourself in order to serve others to the best of your ability, and when you connect human to human with the people that you want to serve and that you deeply, honestly care for, when you stay up at night because you think about all those children that are going hungry in your community, then that's how you cross that barrier and you not only encourage, but you run for office yourself.
Well, one of the things the young lady asked, I think, is how do you remain authentic? I think that's part of what her question was. Well, I can't vouch for all 435 members of our House as to whether or not they're authentic and they're congressional members, but I can guarantee you, I can look you in the eye and tell you that every single one of us freshman congressional members are very, very authentic. We have a love for each other, affinity for each other. We know that we care about our districts. We don't forget where we come from. And yes, there are some people in elected office, from city councils to Congress and whatever office, that aren't authentic. But I can guarantee you we should be very, very proud of the fact that this crew right here is as authentic as they come.
I think that you're not born a politician. I mean, you don't grow up and most of the people here don't say, I'm doing A. Some people do. A, B, then C. For many of us, it's serendipitous. I didn't enter into politics till my children were all grown and gone. So it wasn't like, I once had a city council member, Jackie Goldberg, said, there are no bad politicians. There are only bad people that serve as politicians. And so most of us I don't know, did you, when you were 2 years old, you said, I'm going to shave off my beard and I'm going to... He ran 4 times before he got here. He lost. So
Don't remind me. Why are you reminding me?
You said it first. So anyway, most of us, I think, I've always said this, 95% of the people that serve in any elected capacity, whether it's city council, school board member, even Congress, 95% of the people are doing it for the very right reason. They want to serve their community. And they're not going to change from what they were or who they are. 5%, I don't know what the hell they're doing. But anyway, that being the case.
I just want to add one more thing. I think there's a new generation of policymakers and politicians who are much clearer about, sounds trite, but it's true, about making a difference and not about power. And if you have a passion, my passion about taking care of my mom and making sure that those voices are heard in Congress, people who cannot speak for themselves, that if you stay true to that, you can't help yourself but be engaged in making a difference. And so you advise your colleagues and your friends to serve from the heart, and they'll never lose their way.
I do want to add that there are some senior members in our audience today who have a great heart also, and who served for all the right reasons and continue to serve for all the right reasons. If we have another social media question, I'd like it loaded because we're running out of time. I will take your question, sir.
Thank you. I'm Congressman Rubén Hinojosa, and I want to tell my colleagues that my heart swells with pride to hear the genuineness with which you have spoken as to why you ran for Congress and won. We are so, so proud of you.
Oh,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
You've made many points that are very important to us in the audience. And I want to share with you that the area that I come from was probably second only to Mississippi in terms of poverty and very low voter turnout. And you spoke about many of the things that have to be done to double the numbers that we have in Congress. And what I heard was you have to have name recognition and you have to have money, be able to raise money. And so the other point that you all made that was very strong was getting them out to vote. Gloria, you said we can register record numbers, but to get them out to vote. Well, ours was the same way. We had an average of 30% voter turnout. This last election in 2012, we created an act that Tony Cárdenas spoke about, that Alonso Cantu, one of our community leaders and a member of the CHCI Board of Directors, he gave us an idea, and that he said he was going to call it, and you can make your notes wherever you're seated, and it's AACT. And that acronym stands for Advocacy Alliance Center of Texas. And it was in writing, it is in writing, and you can find it on the website by simply putting that acronym in, AACTnow.com. And you'll see how it was structured, and that we have taken our 30% voter turnout to 55% voter turnout. But this is one that is very, very well thought out. And that is that you have to go to the largest businesses in our region, and we have to convince them that they will have days of the week when they will allow their employees time off, 2 hours, to get off of work, paid, and to go vote. And that works. They also, and I'm talking about hospitals, they're talking about banks, they're talking about big, big businesses that have 200-300 people working for them. And we have them in Deep South Texas. The second thing they did is they took a very influential group of community leaders and went to see our bishop at Brownsville and told him, will you tell the priests in our churches that it is okay to set up some tables outside the church after the celebration of the Mass and register them to vote, and why it's so important. And they sent the order out, and we started doing that in every Catholic church. Then they sent out a notice that the priests say, you must go out to vote. And we had, of course, the lists of who was registered. And we developed a program so that we would call them no less than 5 times until they voted. Because there's a way of knowing who votes. Not how they voted, but who voted. And if they haven't voted, you call them again and again and again, like one of you said. Lastly, there's other details, and you've got to raise money. But there are businesses that will give the money to make this happen because it's so important. So all I can say is there are ways of learning how to get the community to get involved. Because when I ran in 1996, I couldn't raise money. They told me that I had to raise $1 million. And I wound up borrowing money and raising only $300,000. So I owed $550,000 after winning 3 elections to get elected. That was my campaign debt. And Bill Clinton said he would come to my district after the story that I told earlier. And he said, do you owe any money in your debt? And I said, yes, $550,000. He said, do you do you plan to give money to the DCCC and the DNC? And I said, well, they told me that half of it went to them. He says, forget them. Keep all the money that you raise and pay down your debt. I'd never heard that. Anyway, he came down and we raised $1,000 per ticket, no comps. And we raised $600,000 that one day, paying off $550 of my debt and the other $50,000 or $60,000 to pay the requirements for the Air Force One to fly down there and Secret Service and so forth. I'm telling you, we had to learn that we could sell a ticket for $1,000 to go to a fundraiser instead of selling one ticket for $1,000 to sit 10 people around a table, which was the way that we used to think. So all I can say is it's a change of the mindset. And we have women, we have Latinos that are judges, that are mayors and county commissioners. We have I would say 100% now Latinos in Deep South Texas for all the elected officials. So I can say you can turn things around. One man at the right place at the right time can put some ideas on the table like Alonso Cantu has done with ACT, and that changes everything.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is sabiduría, right? Little wisdom talking. Goes a long way. All right, we are running out of time here. Not sure if this clock is ticking me down to the absolute time. I am going to take one more question. Go ahead.
It's not on. Is it on? Okay.
It is now.
Can you hear me now? Okay. We're here with high school students from Prince George's County, Maryland, from Northwest.
Yay, high school students.
And Duval High School, Northwestern and Duval High School. And my question, I hope, is a pretty simple one. Sometimes it's hard when you're a teenager, and I'm sure you can all think back to when you were 16 or 17, and it's hard to think about the future. And I wonder if you could tell us, when you were 16 or 17, did you ever think that you would be in Congress, or could you imagine that you'd be sitting up on that stage?
I think that's a collective no. Am I right?
No, not at all.
But go ahead.
I was married.
At 16.
At 16, you were married. So there you have it.
Oh.
Wow.
Hence the 10.
You know, I never thought that. I thought I was going to be a priest. So I never thought of politics. But I did know this for sure, that I was going to make my life count. My mother had ingrained that in us, all 10 of us, and I have 10 brothers and sisters, 10 of us. And she really drilled down into all of us that our life was going to make a difference. And we were extremely poor. If we had a poor off here, I'd probably be the poorest, I think, but I'm not sure. You know, someone at least had a trailer. Hell, I lived in a porch. But anyway. But I did know that that I was going to do something with my life, and that people were going to help me along the way, and that's what happened. And so I hope that, you know, I have a 17-year-old daughter. Last year, she was in Nicaragua working up in the mountains at 16 last year, working on water purification. It scared the devil out of me. This year, she was in Paraguay, and she lived with an indigenous family that spoke Guarani. They didn't even speak Spanish. So she's 17. So, yeah, you kids have a vision, and you can get there.
Look, can I say something? I know that I'm not part of the panel, but the fact that you are here today at CHCI is a really important step in the right direction. Cool. Yep. You are taking advantage of opportunities, so I commend you for that. Congratulations. You are headed in the right direction. And expectations are everything. Set them super high. These folks here, look at their resumes. I mean, they accomplish great things because they put in the sweat equity at the end of the day. So that is all I have to say about these panels, because they're just amazing. But I'm going to let you have the closing remarks. So I'm going to start again with you, Congressman Cárdenas.
Thank you. Everybody.
Man, a few words.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And to all the CHCI fellows, to everybody, best of luck in the coming years. And please know that we're praying for you, that we're hoping for you, we're cheering for you. Good luck.
I just want to reiterate something that Juan said. You know, we want to thank the sponsors and the hosts of this event. You know, as someone who's been here, you talk about sweat equity. I look at a lot of the lobbyists that now help us, right? That we knew them when they were staff in members' offices, and now they're big-time lobbyists and don't return my calls. And so the opportunity to have those folks that are now around you, sitting around you, working with them together and making a difference, but at the same time, the business community investing in CHCI so we can broaden this and so we can all be successful.
I want to share my thanks as well to CHCI and all of the sponsors and everybody who took the time to stay through this incredibly long lunch. Never give 7 of us microphones, ever. But I also want to do a shout out. The CHCI intern program is fantastic. Our district office, our intern, I think, is here, Alma Acosta, who's now our LA, and she's over there, and she is a rock star. So thank you very much.
Thank you for allowing us to speak before you. When I was in the state legislature, my best thing I used to like to do is visit at all the grammar schools because I want them to see that the representative look like them.
Excellent. I also want to say thank you to all the sponsors, to CHCI, to the students, everybody who came, and also to those who served our foods, made our food, and is helping manage this whole hotel. There's one word I think that would wrap it all up, and I think that is a very a strong word that we all agree on, and that's adelante.
I also wanted to thank the sponsors. We notice you here that you're helping us. Thank you. Thank you very much, because it does make a difference to our people, people that are poor and struggling and coming up, and we appreciate that. And to all you young people out there, make your life count. Dale con ganas. Make your life count. You can make your lives count. People out there are starving for leadership, and that's why you're here. You're leaders. Make your life count. Make it important. Do great things.
I want to join everybody in thanking not only the sponsors, but those of you who sat through the entire thing, and that shows some significant commitment. I'm going to leave you with one. I will tell you, especially those of you who are young and working your way up, you're going to have really bad days and you're going to have really hard times. And it's not easy. And understand that from the beginning. But I will tell you that whenever I thought I couldn't do it, whenever I thought I was having a hard time and maybe I should choose something else, my mother would come to me with this saying that she used all the time. And it is a saying that I use whenever I feel like complaining. Because my mother would say, mijo, un buen gallo en cualquier gallinero canta. A good rooster crows in any hen house. So I leave you with that, because truly anything that you can dream, you can do.
And I would like to thank all of our congressmen and women for being here today. You have truly inspired me. And I suspect you've inspired everybody in the audience. And it's been an education. I am so very proud of all of you. And I'm so very proud to be a Latina when I look at all of you. I hope my kids, I'm going to let them read your bios a bit there, because there are so many different ways to arrive at where you are today. Thank you so much for being with us. I also want to thank, we have an audience of 2,000 that we did not see in the audience here today because they are watching us via streaming video. So I want to thank them also for their participation. Thank you, all of you, for being here today, and our sponsors as well. I have a couple of housekeeping items here. We hope that you join us this afternoon for the next powerful session at the Immigration Plenary from 3 to 5 p.m. It's in room 147, just across the hall. The session will focus on the tremendous work of legislators in the Gang of Eight, and how this is something you're interested in, and the House Working Group in their efforts to pass a landmark immigration bill. This is important. You asked about this, and how the public can help to get it to the finish line. We have confirmed 5 U.S. senators on one stage for the first time in CHCI's history. So don't miss it. And lastly, if you're up from 4 to 6 a.m., you can catch me on Early Start at CNN. Thank you so much.